Hey everyone, so today working on the engine a little bit. I'm going to be putting this cover back on behind the flywheel. A couple notes I wanted to make about this piece. I'm not sure if I talked about them on my B. So at the bottom, I think it should be the bottom, yeah, is this well here, and that is where oil drains because it's like an oil slinger right there. I think this works as an oil slinger, and the oil has to drain to here in order to go back into the well there. So whenever you have this off, make sure that you clean that out. I don't know, you can see daylight a little bit in there, so you want to make sure you got that cleaned out. If you're getting oil outside the pulley and such, there's a chance that could be clogged. Like even this, it was pretty clogged up, and I just took a wire down there, cleaned it out. So make sure you get this cleaned up. I've got a new gasket to go on, so we'll put the gasket on, then this piece. Now this has some adjustment capability that it needs to be centered with the pulley. So you don't want to just put this on, tighten it down, and call it good. You actually want to put this on, get your bolts, leave them a little loose, put the pulley on, make sure that when you spin the pulley, nothing rubs on this. I think I saw, let me find it here. You could tell, I think there it rubbed. Sorry, let me get the focus right. At one point, you can see it got a little hot, a little discoloring, but not too bad. So it's just something to be mindful of. I think I mentioned it when I was taking this apart. To get the pulley off sometimes is a pain because the wheel. Something you can do is I completely deflated the tire, take a strap around it, and pull it in a little bit. I just have a light duty strap because I didn't need very much. However, I've seen guys really pull this back with a heavy duty tie down strap or a chain and come along or something, just draw it back. That prevents you from having to move the wheel out enough, or having to dismount the rim and the tire. So just something to keep in mind. Easy life hack. Somebody had a picture of that on Facebook, and I was like, man, why didn't I think of that one time? Even though every time I've been taking them completely apart anyway. But that's just for you guys out there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this piece lined up. Okay, so I got this piece on. In a perfect world, you line up all your bolt heads, get your wire tie in there. Something to note, I guess this is a good place to show you. So right here is where the bearing, if you go inside here rolls. Now when I took this thing off, you could hear it. When this thing was spinning on that shaft, it was pretty loud. This bearing was almost dry. As you can see, I haven't cleaned that out. So before you put this back on, you want to pack this bearing full of oil. Sorry, not oil, like grease. Although, the oil slinger and stuff is meant to get some oil here, it just doesn't do a very good job. Hence this was practically dry. And you obviously don't want to wear that down and let it run dry. So if you have a lot of noise in this area, it could be that this bearing here needs some grease on it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and actually give me 1 second and I'll show you how this spins pretty freely. Okay, so there it is. And you can see you may hear just a smidge of a rub somewhere, but it's very light if there is. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. When you slide it in, obviously it has to engage know that I can get the camera with your first reduction gear. I guess I can install the clutch fork assembly soon. I may note this again when it goes in there when I have it handy, but the brass piece goes in this groove right here. You want to make sure it goes in that groove, otherwise it will not operate properly. So yeah, we'll get a clutch facing on back here first. Then I guess we'll go ahead and put the clutch driver on. Alright, another rainy day. So talking about timing of everything is very important. So with the flywheel piston at top dead center, this weight right here on this clutch driver should be directly forward. Another method of being able to tell, so you have a V mark here, and if you can see it, there's a V mark there, very hidden. Someone painted over it at some point, but I ran a wire brush on it and was satisfied when I did see that. So it's very important that this is forward at left top dead center, and we'll talk about the flywheel in a minute. So we'll get the rest of the clutch assembly on here. So I will go ahead and get this bolt in a minute, but to show the order of the parts going in here, I'll try and do this while holding the phone. So you got this piece that will go in first. And you got this piece that fits on the splines of your clutch driver. There we go. Then you have a friction disc, which, I mean, that doesn't hold it, but I'm just showing you the order for now. And then your outside piece that must be dirt in here. That's the light on the camera is picking up in the video, so sorry about that. The springs on this, they go, oh finally, I don't know why I'm being difficult, back here. So there's one there, there's one there, and there's another one on the other side. So I would put this in here and put that on there, and then you've got your washers and your lock nuts that go on. So let me get this together and then we'll talk about adjustment. Okay, so moving over to the flywheel side, before I kind of put this back together, I want to talk about it a little bit. Behind this piece here, so this piece slides off, is a cork washer. I put a new one in. If you're having oil coming out around your flywheel, around the crankshaft, odds are that cork washer behind there needs to be replaced. Just like the others, soak it in oil for a couple minutes and put it in. Just be careful. It's, you know, kind of brittle. It's cork. I broke one being dumb and had to buy another one. So I got that on. You may have noticed throughout my videos, I never officially took this off and replaced this gasket behind here. I'm taking a chance on that. I know this entire tractor was taken apart at one point, so I figured that was replaced. It is showing signs that there was a leak. However, all signs point to this cork washer here. So we got that together. If for some reason you ever need to take these apart, you've got your two big nuts on the outside, because this is a two-piece bearing. Apparently, I think real late ones had one piece. In order to get to the top head here, you can actually, if you can see it, take this plug out on the back side. Then you can access those. So while we're looking at this, let's pay attention to this little key right here. Very important. So this acts like an oil slinger, and that key, if you look at the back side of the flywheel, that key there goes in that keyway. So it's important to get this positioned right. Now, funny thing, there is supposed to be like a set screw, I believe, on one of these splines. When I say a set screw, it's more like an indicating screw, because it only allows the flywheel to go on in like one way. I don't have one. So how, again, going back to the timing, how I know that, or not, I shouldn't say timing, I guess that was the wrong usage before, balancing of the engine. In terms of the weight balance, so we talked about with the left piston at top dead center, the weight on the clutch driver is all the way forward, and I need to look it up here in a second, but I believe the weight on the flywheel, and if you look on this backside, there's the weight right there. I believe that is all the way to the back. Give me 1 second to confirm that. Well, actually, doesn't really matter too. The other indicator is this mark here on the steering cover. Again, left side, top dead center. That mark there should line up with left hand impulse. I know we're reading upside down here, but it should be rotated to line up with that mark. So if I look inside here, I'm rotated a little bit. I don't know if I can do this one-handed. There we go. All right. So actually the weight of that clutch driver is throwing me off, adding that clutch driver on. So I'll have to somehow work around that. But yeah, so I will get this cover on here. First, I got a gasket to go on. Get this cover on, and I will have to see where this falls in terms of where that key ends up in relation to its orientation. May have to tap that and rotate it and get that lined up. Probably do that once I start to get it on and I can really get hopefully a better look at it. So, all right, here we go. All right, everyone, so there you have it. Got the flywheel back on. Big step. Something else I noticed. So on here, actually, too, there are two arrows. So you want to match those up. The key and keyway was one spline down from the opposite side. So I rotated that keyway around to here, and bam, on it went. A couple of interesting notes. I don't know why somebody put punch marks on the end of this crankshaft. No idea why. So yeah, so let's go back over to the other side, and we will put the clutch fork assembly on. I didn't tighten this down yet, so I will adjust crankshaft and play later. You do that by adjusting this position on the crankshaft. You want it essentially tight, but not quite. I think the book is like 7 thousandths when you have the clutch handle engaged and just wiggle it back and forth. So we'll talk about that more later. So let's go jump to the other side and see what we got. Alright, so a couple interesting notes on this piece. I grabbed this a minute ago, and the snap ring was not in its top groove, so the shaft was able to just come right out. If I remember here while putting this together, I'll put a link to the video on my B. I show how this gets all taken apart and put back together. It's all the same. Not the same parts, but same process. Basically, to take it apart, you got to get this snap ring out of its groove. You can't just try and spread it too far because you'll snap it, but just enough to get it out of its groove and onto the shaft, and then start pulling the shaft out. So I got that back in there. Oddly enough, there's a washer here. There shouldn't be. Yeah, you know, just like before, I don't like extra parts, but I wonder why someone did it. So I'm not going 100% by the book, and you can easily take this off, 4 bolts, and this comes off. So if I ever need to work on this later. The brass, you know, it looks awfully thin to me, but whoops, when you look at and my wonderful dirt floor that I hate working on, and that's why, you know, there isn't really much groove in it. So I guess it never had much meat on it unless somebody ground it down before all of it, because I felt like the B had a lot on it. So I got a new pad on this when I got it. It's just a clip-on. It's not a rivet. So we'll get this back in there. So what I was talking about before is this brass piece here has to go in that groove I tried to show you guys right there. The shiny part of that groove. If you don't, it won't be right. So I'll go ahead. I've got a new gasket for this and get this on. Okay, so there you have it. That's back on. Now I'll show you here with the flywheel just loose on there. See if I can do it. So I'm going to operate the clutch here, and I'm actually going to push the pulley in. You can see how the pulley can move. When your end play is set right, this will not move with the clutch. I think due to the length of the video, I'm just going to cover end play adjustment and clutch tightening in another video. But one more thing for this video, I want to talk about the oil filter bottom. So this was, I think, ultimately the culprit of why my B sat for 25 years, because I couldn't keep oil in it. Underneath here is a spring and like a washer. All of this is held on via a snap ring right there, if you can see it. So I didn't take this apart, but what I did was I took a pipe cleaner, kind of like what your kids use for art class, and I had this soaking in diesel, and I threaded this around there and got some real nasty grit out. So make sure you clean this out, because all of the crap from the bottom of the oil filter housing will go to the bottom here. So we'll get this on and a new oil filter in. Don't forget, if you're changing your oil filter, go ahead and, if you can, replace the rubber gasket that is up underneath there, right where this sits and presses up against. So if you're having an oil leak around that oil filter, make sure you're changing the gasket. Do not just keep tightening this nut, because you will pull down that stud on the oil head assembly, and you can strip those threads out, and then you're in a real situation. So I'll go ahead and get this in. Then I want to put oil in it and make sure I've got good oil flow coming out. Oh, something I should add when you're putting this together, so I apologize, and in all honesty, I forgot it and took that out to do this. Don't forget to put a quart of oil back here underneath your first reduction gear cover. The later G's, A's, and B's, they have a fill hole here, and they got a drain plug down there. The earlier ones do not. I think that started like 1950. I remember in the parts book for G's, it's serial number 49,000 and change on. So if you don't have that fill plug there, it's actually easiest to do it when the pulley's off. You can just stick a funnel down in there. However, I was able to take this off since I had the clutch driver and everything on. I didn't want to take all that back off. Get a long funnel and shoot some oil back there. Because how that works is there's oil that sits down in here, but it doesn't really communicate with the engine oil very much, because the bearing oil goes underneath here into the belly here, but then there's a hole that sends it back to the engine bay. So some of that oil gets splashed onto this gear and that feeds it, but initially you need to put oil back here. So, all right, so as I rotate, don't know that you can tell there, you can tell hopefully there, I've got oil coming out. It ain't super easy right now, but I got oil coming out there. And this one, so I think we're good. But man, let me tell you, it took a lot of turning to get those lines filled. So I suppose when you change the oil, you aren't actually draining all the lines and everything like I did when you take it all apart. But quite a delay before it got oil in it. So okay, yeah, I think I might end this video here. The next video, I think I will cover the crankshaft end play, as in adjusting the clutch, adjusting the end play. I need to get the block back on. I got the new gasket here ready to go. Then the head should be done this weekend, and hopefully get this thing running in the next few weeks. So, all right, everyone, have a good day.